The morning it happened, Rowan Hale stood in the cramped hallway of his apartment, staring at the eviction notice trembling between his fingers. It was the third one in 6 months, but this time the landlord scribbled warning at the bottom left no mercy. His 9-year-old daughter, Mira, was still asleep in her small room, her drawings taped to the wall in uneven lines, little worlds she'd created to escape the reality that their own was falling apart. Rowan felt something collapse inside him, a silent implosion he'd grown used to hiding. The weight of years of struggle pressed on his chest, making it hard to breathe. His wife had been gone for 2 years, taken by a winter accident and circumstances he still replayed in sleepless nights. Everything afterward became a fight just to survive. If you believe in hope, compassion, and second chances, viewers of Ripple of Love, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to help this story reach more hearts. Rowan had been searching for work endlessly. Every morning he left before Mira woke. Every night he returned exhausted, defeated, and ashamed of how little he could offer her. But that day, the same day the eviction paper arrived, something unexpected happened. On the community board at the grocery store, wedged between old piano lessons flyers and a lost pet poster, there was a job posting no one had touched. It was wrinkled, sun-faded, and had been there long enough to collect dust. Groundskeeper needed immediately. Remote estate. Long hours. Low pay. Must be comfortable with isolation. No phone number. Just an address on the outskirts of town. Rowan almost tore it down without thinking. It looked like the kind of job men took when they had nothing left. When they were running from the world. He realized he was one of those men. He pocketed the paper before fear could interfere. Mira deserved safety. She deserved stability. And he would walk into any storm to give her that. The estate was an hour's drive away, buried behind dense pines and silent, open fields. Rowan and Mira walked up the gravel path because the truck had died halfway there. The place looked abandoned at first glance, tall grass, chipped stone, windows veiled by sheets of dust. But something about it felt frozen in time, as if it was waiting for someone to breathe life back into it. Rowan met the owner, a middle-aged woman named Talia Winford, who carried an air of quiet sorrow behind her calm, remote demeanor. She studied Rowan longer than he expected, noticing the exhaustion in his eyes, the protective way he stood near Mira, the hunger and fear he tried so hard to hide. Talia explained the job: upkeep, repairs, cleaning, whatever the estate demanded. She lived in a separate house deeper on the property and valued privacy. She made no promises of long-term security. But she offered him a small guest cottage, enough pay to keep them fed, and a chance. Rowan said yes before she finished the sentence. In the beginning, the days felt endless. The estate required backbreaking work, clearing fallen branches, restoring fountains overtaken by vines, repairing windows cracked by neglect. The silence felt heavy, trapping Rowan inside his own thoughts. But he kept going because Mira laughed again, really laughed, as she explored the open fields and chased butterflies near the pond. That sound alone was enough to keep him alive. As the weeks passed, Rowan discovered the estate held secrets the locals whispered about. People said the Winford family once hosted grand gatherings, filled with music and candlelight, before tragedy shattered it all. Rowan often saw Talia standing at her window, watching the horizon with the longing of someone who had lost too much to name. He respected her distance. They were both broken in different ways, and sometimes broken people recognized each other by instinct. One late afternoon, a storm approached. Dark clouds rolled over the estate, and Rowan hurried to secure the outdoor furniture near the old veranda. As he lifted a rusted lantern, he noticed a small carved symbol beneath it, initials intertwined with a date from 11 years ago. Something about it felt deeply personal, like a memory trapped in wood. When the thunder cracked, Rowan hurried back inside the cottage, Mira curled up with a blanket and flashlight, reading one of the second-hand books he'd bought her. He sat beside her, pulling her close, hearing the wind slam against the windows. For a moment, he wondered if this strange place was starting to feel like a home. But the calm didn't last. A week later, Rowan was repairing a broken garden gate when he overheard two neighbors talking beyond the fence. They whispered about how the Winford estate was cursed with grief. How Talia lost her only son in an accident on the property. How she spiraled into solitude afterward, shutting out the world. Rowan's chest tightened in recognition. Pain, loss, and guilt, those were familiar ghosts. That night, he found Talia sitting on the old stone steps behind the manor, staring at the pond Mira loved so much. The twilight light cast a fragile glow over her features. Rowan didn't approach her, he simply stood nearby, giving silent company. She didn't look at him, but she didn't ask him to leave. And in that quiet moment, an unspoken understanding formed between them, two souls living with wounds too deep for words. Autumn arrived slowly, painting the estate gold and amber. Mira grew more comfortable, filling the cottage with life. Talia softened too, occasionally leaving fresh bread or books at their door. Rowan noticed small changes in her, the way she lingered when speaking to Mira, how she sometimes watched Rowan work from a distance with an expression he couldn't decipher. Then one morning, everything shifted. Rowan entered the manor to fix a leak after last night's rain. When he stepped inside the parlor, he froze. Talia was there, sitting on an old velvet chaise, bathed in soft daylight filtering through the tall windows. She seemed strangely vulnerable, not the distant employer he knew, but a woman trying to gather the pieces of her own broken heart. When she lifted her eyes, Rowan saw something new, a mixture of fear, hope, and a silent plea for connection she wasn't ready to voice. As Rowan took a cautious step toward her, Mira suddenly ran in with excitement, carrying a drawing she'd made for Talia. The air shifted again, gentler now, warmer, like a door creaking open inside a house long abandoned. For the first time in years, Rowan felt something loosen in his chest. Days turned into weeks, and the invisible walls around Talia slowly lowered. She joined Mira for afternoon walks. She began asking Rowan about his dreams, his past, his grief. One evening, she handed him an old photo album, showing him the life she once had, the love she lost, the child she still mourned. Rowan understood her loneliness intimately, and in sharing their broken histories, something healing took root. But healing is never simple. One cold morning, Rowan received a letter from a construction company he'd applied to months ago, offering him a stable high-paying job in the city. It meant security, everything he wanted for Mira. Yet when he imagined leaving the estate, something inside him twisted painfully. This place had given him more than work. It had given him belonging, purpose, and a connection he never expected. He looked at Mira playing with Talia's dog on the lawn, her smile brighter than it had been in years. He looked at Talia watching from the porch, her eyes soft, hopeful, afraid. Rowan realized the hardest decisions weren't between good and bad, they were between good and good. Viewers, if this story touched your heart up to this moment, your support, likes, comments, shares, and subscribing, helps more emotional stories come to life. He spent the night thinking, weighing the future in trembling hands. At dawn, he walked through the estate grounds, the grass glittering with frost, remembering the man he was when he arrived, broken, desperate, directionless. This place had rebuilt him piece by piece. Mira had blossomed here. Talia had learned to let someone into her silent world again. Before the final emotional closing, viewers, please comment below what part of this story touched you most. Rowan made his choice not out of fear, but out of love. He walked to Talia's porch, Mira at his side, and told her quietly that he wanted to stay, not because he needed the job, but because this place had become home. Talia's eyes filled with emotion she tried to hide, but couldn't. For the first time since her son's passing, she felt the warmth of a new beginning forming gently at the edges of her guarded heart. And in that still morning air, Rowan realized that the job nobody wanted had given him everything he never knew he was searching for. It had saved him. It had saved Mira. And maybe, just maybe, it was beginning to save Talia too.